You're listening to the Ecosystem Approach Show. I'm Jason.
And I'm Patricia. Tune in every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time and 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Transformation Talk Radio.
We discovered that human potential is severely limited when you program humans like a machine, which is standard practice today for self-improvement.
The ecosystem approach teaches you how to uncover your infinite potential by using natural methods that are truly revolutionary. Join us now for the Ecosystem Approach Show. This is the Ecosystem Approach Show. I'm Patricia, and I'm here with my husband, Jason. Today, we're talking about the problems that demand self-healing and some personal stories. We use an ecosystem approach to you, which is much different than what you are commonly taught. We see human beings as ecosystems that need to be uncovered instead of programmed. Human potential becomes infinite with our ecosystem approach. Okay, Jason, so why are we going to start this series? And by the way, this is a series on self-healing by telling stories.
So the audience can have and understand the concepts of self-healing with some context. This is very important.
Okay, so what's the first story?
You know, some of you may have heard this before. My first wife died when she was in her 20s. She was 28. My daughter was, 5, 6, 7, and during that time. And I was in the military. So part of her treatment, my first wife's treatment was at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, which was in Washington, D.C. You may have heard of it. It's very famous. That's where they used to treat the presidents. I remember this time, this wise old Army surgeon oncologist came up to me. He knew who I was, and I was waiting in the hallway for something, and I remember this conversation really well. I don't remember his face, but I remember exactly what he said. And he explained to me that when they say, you have treatment that's 80% curable or a cancer that's 80% curable, what it means is that out of 100 people, 80 will live and 20 will die. And then he told me something that stuck with me for years and years. This is almost 30 years, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. That if you're among the 20 that die, you don't care about the other 80 that are living. And what he was trying to say to me, and I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall, that, when they say 80% curable, it sounds great when you're starting out. We're conditioned to say, well, what are my chances? You see that on the TV shows all the time, medical shows. Someone gets a bad diagnosis and he says, well, what are my chances? What are my odds? Is it 10%? Is it 50%? What is it? And I want to talk about, what those statistics mean. But here's the other part of the story. 7 years later, my daughter, I remember this very clearly. We were traveling, and she was having problems. They discovered that she had the same cancer, the same stage, in the same place. Now, my wife had a form of Hodgkin's disease, which is a lymphoma. And if you know anything about lymphoma, is that it can you have lymph nodes all over your body, but the ones that were swollen for my wife was right around her heart. And when we looked at the X-ray for my daughter, it was in the exact same place. And when they staged it, it was the exact same stage. And when we told my daughter that she said, I always knew I was going to get cancer like my mom. So we took her for treatment at one of the best pediatric cancer centers in the world, is at Stanford. And we used a similar chemo and radiation protocol. But what was always bothering me is that, okay, we used a similar chemo and radiation protocol. My first wife died. It's her mother. Why would I do the same thing? That's the definition of insanity. And one of the things that we started using with my daughter was we did try a couple alternative processes. We used homeopathy, and a very famous homeopathist from Brazil didn't work. We used some other protocols. They may have helped, but they certainly didn't get rid of the cancer. And then we started using an acupuncturist who was using a combination of acupuncture and craniosacral to deal with the side effects of the chemotherapy. And my daughter really took to this, and they used the craniosacral method. This is way before I started doing this work, to kind of ask my daughter yes/no questions. And at one point, she got, after 4 cycles of the chemotherapy, she was supposed to have 6.
What would you do with the power of community? How do you create your own rituals? Tune in to Living Your Gifts with me, Susan Huff, Ancient Applications for Modern Times, the second Wednesday of each month on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Our lives begin with the stories we are told and the stories we tell ourselves. Storytelling is the key. To learn more about me, visit livingyourgifts.com. That's livingyourgifts.com.
The Knowledge Book, currently studied in 39 countries and 15 languages around the world, accelerates our evolution, takes us out of depression, offers universal truth, protects us, and makes us stronger, both spiritually and physically. So if you are interested in the Knowledge Book, visit usa.theknowledgebook.net and tune in to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
It's time to get your life back on Burn Bright Today with Jennifer Marcinelli. Tune in each month on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Learn to move from the darkness of burning out to the light of burning bright. Jennifer is redefining stress and the energetic causes of burnout, shining a light on process to get your life back. For more information about Jennifer and her work, visit burnbrighttoday.com.
Coming to you live on TransformationTalkRadio.com is the Brilliance Ultimatum. Time's Up with Claudette Rowley. Powerful conversations, practical innovations, and transformative solutions as Claudette and her guests delve into the possibilities and what she calls reality resistance. Join the cultural revolution and annihilate obstacles. Check it out at culturalbrilliance.com.
Tales from the Merworld with Amira Bath, exploring the mysteries of Atlantis and Lemuria, airing every second and fourth Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Tales from the Merworld Radio is a blend of mythology, theology, and ancient history, and Amira's own soul channelings. Are you ready to explore and validate the possibility that we are much more than our earth bodies? Amira Bath's Tales from the Merworld Radio holds safe space discussions for remembrances and memories of topics like multidimensional existences and simultaneous lives. Together, we will be raising our vibrations through stimulating conversations and the opening and releasing of the remembrance of our soul purposes for this incarnation. Join me, Amira Bath, for Tales of the Merworld Radio.
We remember a time when you could simply form a thought and it would manifest. The harmony was forgotten, but it is returning now. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Juliet Griffin on TransformationTalkRadio.com each second and fourth Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific. We'll take you on adventures through the heart and spirit, exploring who we once were. This intuitive healer studied under the guidance of wolves, learning from their wisdom to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Visit OneTrueSelf.com.
Are you ready to awaken to your divine and true potential? Tune into a Spirited Exchange Radio with me, Carrie Kadambi, every second and fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. We discuss the evolution of the modern mind and how the power of awakening, healing, and connecting allows us to step into living a life of love in action. For more information about me, visit thedivineguidancegift.com.
Are you done being afraid to jump into the life that's waiting for you? Are you ready for a real shift? I invite you to tune in every Tuesday with me, Tracy L., on the Tracy L. Clark Show, where we will teach you how to live your extraordinary life. At 8 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio, where I will provide the tools and the steps needed to help you transcend perceived limitations and move forward with an extraordinary life. For more information, visit me at tracylclark.com.
Are you your story? Or can you change your story? Can you change what you believe to be true about yourself and your circumstances as part of your healing journey? What if you were to change your expectations? What if you were to invite ease and cooperation into every day and then step back and see what happens? It might just be easier. I'm Megan Edge, and I hope that you'll join me on my new radio show, Playing on the Edge, Radical Change with Ease, with my co-host Dr. Pat on Transformation Talk Radio. I look forward to seeing you there.
Want to find out more about Megan Edge? Visit her website at meganedge.ca.
The Knowledge Book, currently studied in 39 countries and 15 languages around the world, accelerates our evolution, takes us out of depression, offers universal truth, protects us, and makes us stronger, both spiritually and physically. So if you are interested in the Knowledge Book, visit usa.theknowledgebook.net and tune in to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
It's time to get your life back on Burn Bright Today with Jennifer Marcinelli. Tune in each month on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Learn to move from the darkness of burning out to the light of burning bright. Jennifer is redefining stress and the energetic causes of burnout, shining a light on process to get your life back. For more information about Jennifer and her work, visit burnbrighttoday.com.
Okay, so I apologize. We had some technical difficulties, and we're just gonna start in again. I don't know how much of the story that you were able to hear, but basically the takeaway is that this is the death of my first wife, and then the subsequent same cancer that my daughter had 7 years later. And here are some of the takeaways that I get from that whole situation. That one is that medicine can only know what it can prove. Some things are not provable, and
some things are not provable by number
or scientifically.
Right.
So if it can't be proven scientifically or in a metric, it doesn't exist.
Well, no, those that are connected to that metric believe it doesn't exist.
Yes. So that doctors think that if you can't prove it, it doesn't exist. We talked about my daughter's story and my first wife's story. So docs can be stubborn and righteous about that. I experienced it firsthand. Also, we were talking about religion and how, in this mediation, they talked about people who had religious beliefs that were contrary to proper treatment, but they would roll over with some sort of what I considered a hypocritical way of approaching it. And I was able to see very clearly back then that religion can also be equally narrow-minded with magical thinking. We see that today, where some people want to disregard just common sense and continue to congregate for religious services. Here's the other thing: statistics aren't a help for you personally. You're unique. Even if you have a good possibility of outcome, it doesn't mean that that's going to happen for you. And even if you have a bad possibility for outcome, it doesn't mean that the bad possibility is going to happen for you. And what traditional medicine doesn't help you with at all is how it's going to affect you, because that's what's important to you, is not how how everybody else how it affects, but how it affects you, especially if it's you or your loved one. That's a big deal. And that there is a truth that comes from essence, that it's covered, discredited, and ignored. Even when I tried to bring that up in this legal proceeding, it was, it made me look silly that, hey, the body has a natural healing intelligence.
Well, you know what, Jason, let me ask you a question. I know your first wife died from Hodgkin's disease, and then your daughter 7 years later, same place, same everything. And she said, I knew I was always going to get cancer like my mom. Here's my question to you, that when we understand the essence of our own story, if you had understood what you understand today and know what you know today, I believe that there's a huge possibility that you could have helped your first wife live. Now, granted, everybody, that would have meant I was out of the picture, but that's not what we're talking about here. That's my story.
Well, and it's this isn't magic either. I know that because of the sexual abuse that my first wife had endured, and she never really talked about it. I didn't really understand it or know it. Just I know it existed. It was out there. Right. When you start working at the level of your essence, you're able to make decisions. And just because you start clearing it doesn't mean that it's going to magically turn out the way other people want.
Exactly. And the other thing that I want to say here is that in that magical thinking, and by the way, I don't know anybody who doesn't either want to have magical thinking or do magical thinking to protect themselves, to protect a situation. I get all that. My point about the whole thing is that thank God you had started doing the clearing. When you did, you started using the ecosystem approach before we actually named it. But thank God for that, because after the death and life had moved on, the bottom line is that I got a phone call. And we believed we figured it out. It was about 7 years after his daughter had the treatments. I got a phone call directly from the people who treated her.
The hospital.
Yeah. And they said, this could be a very delicate question, but we would like to know how, the daughter is. And I said, what do you mean? She's fine. And they went, what? You're kidding. No. You don't understand the question, that kind of thing. And the bottom line is I was telling the truth. In other words, I knew what I knew and, what I saw.
Well, and because she had used an experimental chemotherapy protocol,
mm-hmm.
I guarantee you their conclusion was that this protocol was so good
yes.
and so powerful. That's why she was able to live. My takeaway was the exact opposite, which is because we acknowledged her essence at the time, we
right.
said, that's enough. There's no more.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she lived. We honored her story.
Exactly.
And that goes back to one of the takeaways that, medicine can only know what it can prove. And its conclusions often are faulty because it only has a very narrow view of the way the world works.
Well, and I do have to say this. One of the things that after I had met his daughter, she realized my abilities and so forth. And I told her that I had been talking to her mom. And this even brings tears. I'd been talking to her mom, and her mom was basically saying, you can see, her mom was talking to me. You can see, please help my daughter. And I have to tell you, it was amazing because I wasn't attached yet, of course. I could actually see very well the things that needed to be cleared for Jason's daughter.
Yes.
And she is alive, well, and kicking and fiery as the day is long. I love her dearly.
Yeah, she's quite a character.
Yes, she truly is. So, Jason, do we want to talk about the key points or do we want to go to the next one?
No, let's go to the key points and then we'll go to the next segment.
All right.
Medicine is limited to what it can prove. Many things are true, but not provable in the traditional scientific method.
Okay.
Both medicine and religion can be righteous and intellectually stubborn. our essence is the source of our healing, and it has a story, and clearing that story can improve outcomes for you personally or for your loved ones. And the ecosystem approach teaches you to identify your personal story to ensure a good outcome for you.
Okay, and because of technical difficulties, I don't know if we're gonna
let's
just keep on going. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
All right. So, I have a question for you then, Jason. How did the case end with your daughter?
Okay, it was on a technicality. In other words, it was, and people give Child Protective Services a bad rap. They're the boogeyman. But in this case, they didn't want this case. They everybody was uncomfortable with it, and the head of the Child Protective Services, where we were, found that in the file I had signed permission for a experimental treatment, and she said, "You can't say that this person will die unless she has this treatment," which is the medical arrogance, and then say on the other hand that it's experimental, and if she dies, you can't hold us responsible.
Right.
It two things, and she went after the doctor for it, and that goes back to the arrogance. He believed that any sort of chemotherapy and radiation would have been helpful, and at that time, and this has been since discredited, but they saw that you have to get rid of all the cancer cells in the body. Otherwise, if you just have a few, they'll come back and they'll regrow.
Yes.
And that's since been discredited, but that's what was a belief back then.
Right. And by the way, I'd like to say that, am I correct that they've proven that we all have cancer cells in our body?
Yes. And the growth of a tumor is not linear. In other words, it's not, it just going to go big, get bigger and bigger and bigger.
And so that's going to bring me to a point. I know that isn't what we have prepared for the show today, that because cancer isn't linear, cancer is, you and I know, we see that things like cancer are affected by our emotional story.
Yes. And so this is what the whole self-healing for this show is about, is that this emotional story gives us real power to deal with whatever's happening to us personally.
So, okay. So, and like I said, technical difficulties, I have no idea where we're at, but Jason, let's talk about my heart surgery.
So, when we talk about self-healing, we've come upon this through a series of stories in our life that make this relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to kind of do the lead in for you,
Great.
Sweetie. So, Patricia had, she was diagnosed with a heart valve problem. And
a congenital one. In other words, I was born with it.
She had taught water aerobics that morning, and we walked into the emergency room and just expected that, it was probably,
I thought I had a lung thing going on.
Yeah,
maybe I had pneumonia.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
But
oh no,
they wanted to do surgery. They did surgery within a week.
Right.
And one of the things that I remember about this, and the surgery isn't what's really critical. The surgery was very, very successful. But I remember, and Patricia was in the bed at the time, and the cardiologist was talking to me, and she lodged it out and said, there's two types of valves that we can replace it with. One is titanium, and the other one is a tissue valve, which is bovine. They take from a cow or calf. I think they have pig valves too.
Not anymore.
Yeah. So it was living tissue versus mechanical. And I said to her right off the bat, with someone that has so much heart like my wife, I can't imagine putting something mechanical in the center, where her emotional center is. And talk about deer in the headlights. The cardiologist had no idea what I was talking about. Of course, it was very emotional. It was very, it was descriptive. I wasn't being emotional. I was just talking about the way way
you were
Patricia
talking
was.
about my story.
Yes. And her recommendation for a mechanical valve had great logic because of her age and blah, 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 but it would have been awful for her. And we chose a tissue valve. And what we've been doing with the clearing is making the tissue, the living tissue, harmonize with her living tissue to create a great outcome.
And so let's talk about that for just a minute. The harmonization. It took about 3 weeks before the emotions that were left behind after they removed the valve and put in the new one, there was emotions that were floating around. And all of a sudden, all of these things, these memories, these emotions started bubbling up. And it was incredible. Are we getting the cue that we have just a minute here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go to commercial break then.
Let's go to commercial break, and then we'll come right back and finish the story.
Okay. So stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit more about my story and the emotional connections and how our story really affects self-healing.
Are you ready to put down that drink or drug for good? Are you struggling to maintain your recovery from addictive behaviors? Do you need help with a family member or loved one who's in early recovery or battling addiction? Get the help and guidance you need by arranging a recovery recharged phone session with me, Ellen Stewart, Pushy Broad from the Bronx, certified life and recovery coach. Call 1-800-889-1757. Make an appointment today or go to my website, pushybroadfromthebronx.com, and click on the link that says Recovery Recharged. Don't wait. Get the help you need today. This is Ellen Stewart, Pushy Broad from the Bronx on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
The vibration of change, that magical place where life shifts from struggle to ease, from stagnation to forward movement, from old ways of being to new ways of becoming. If you're like I am, it can be rather elusive to get there, but when you are in it, you feel it down to your very core, don't you? And it can positively affect everything in your life, from your relationships to your health and well-being, from your career path to your abundance, from the quality of that inner connection to the fullness of your self-expression. On the Christine Upchurch Show, we explore ways to get into that vibration of change with experts in the fields of consciousness, psychology, spirituality, health, healing, and science. Join me, Christine Upchurch, every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on KKNW AM 1150 and Transformation Talk Radio, and learn new ways to step into your vibration of change.
We use an ecosystem approach to you, which is much different than you are commonly taught. We see human beings as ecosystems that need to be uncovered instead of programmed. Human potential becomes infinite with our ecosystem approach. And by the way, we're Jason and Patricia.
So we're talking about Patricia's surgery now, and she had a heart valve replacement. The surgery went very well. The surgeon was very pleased, I'm sure, with himself, and everything looked great. But then this happened. I remember, and this was just weeks after the surgery.
It was 3 days after I came home. It started.
Yeah. And Patricia said to me, "Call 911. I think I'm dying." And and she said it in an unemotional way, which is, for if you understood Patricia, for her to say those words in an unemotional way, there was something really wrong. So there were 3 subsequent trips to the emergency
because I ended up having migraine headaches.
That's what they were able to determine. Mm-hmm. And at some point, then they sent it to a neurologist, but because there's no diagnosis,
right?
And at some point, they were even intimating that it's emotional.
Well, yeah. Well, and the neurologist said, "Now I think I can schedule you a session with a psychologist." And I'm like, "I'm not crazy." These were so severe, and we since found out that there's a phenomenon called pump head, mm-hmm. where when you put someone on bypass, which they do for heart surgery,
yes, they strange things start to happen. Now we're talking to you about self-healing in the context of the COVID-19 epidemic
Right.
and this pandemic, and we're talking about self-healing because of that. And the ultimate treatment right now for COVID-19 is to put you on a respirator. But we've already heard about all sorts of difficulties people have coming off a respirator, and this is sort of gets to that.
Okay.
Because when you put someone on a you take over their life,
their life force
in essence, and start making them breathe or pump blood with a mechanical way,
with a rhythm that is not the person's own,
with a different energy.
Exactly.
It creates all sorts of stuff. Now, this created a huge problem for Patricia, but for as far as they were concerned, this was a successful surgery. They couldn't find a diagnosis, so it didn't exist.
It didn't exist,
and it must have been emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the other part that we found out, that one of the things that we did that did help was acupuncture.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And I remember they this was Kaiser, and they did have an acupuncture department, but they
which actually hadn't been there very long.
But they had rules about how you could get it. In other words, you had to use the traditional opioids.
I had to use traditional opioids, which I didn't do very well with anyway. But I also had to have chronic pain for 3 to 6 months. And I'm like, excuse me. And I admit I emotionally lost it in the office. And they're saying, calm down. And I'm speaking a little louder than usual, saying, you don't seem to understand. I cannot function at all at the rate things are going. And I know that acupuncture can help me.
And
so,
this is one of the things where traditional medicine has all these rules, and protocols, and certainly essence, or the body's innate intelligence, is completely discredited, and it's not responsive at all to individuality.
Right.
And this was a great example.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
One of the things that we do use a lot of alternative medicine, and it's not perfect, but one of the things that right now we're going to an amazing chiropractor, and
I'll second that one.
It's great for us. It's accessible. It's perfect. He has these magic hands. It's really kind of neat. But one of the things that I'm aware of, that chiropractic and the American Medical Association were at odds for many, many years.
Right.
And in fact, the courts ruled in favor of chiropractic, saying that the AMA intentionally tried to get rid of chiropractors through antitrust means. In other words, they tried to create a monopoly where the chiropractors weren't allowed. But I also saw an AMA description of chiropractic, which says it's at odds with mainstream medicine, and chiropractic is sustained by pseudo-scientific ideas such as subluxation and innate intelligence, which is what we're talking about, that rejects science. And the truth is, we understand innate intelligence. It doesn't reject science. It just rejects traditional science, the way it's applied.
Exactly. In other words, the rules in which they say you can do this or you can have that, or it's so off. Let me just say it that
There's
way.
an arrogance with that says, okay, you have to do it this way, and if you don't, then there's something wrong with you.
Well, let's bring this back. Jason, I see that most people really don't fall into the average of how the AMA and the scientific world, where they get their information, so to speak, or how they project that information.
Well, I would say that just a little bit differently,
okay.
Which is statistics are good for policy and looking at treatments.
Sure.
But when it's life and death for you, or even if it's just a lot of pain,
right?
The hell with statistics. They don't help you personally.
Exactly.
And it doesn't factor in your personal story, which is where the power is.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the COVID-19 right now, because we all know that this is going to be with us for quite a while.
One of the reasons we're doing self-healing right now during the time of COVID-19 is that traditional medicine has just is flopped. They're using social distancing and having you wash your hands all the time.
Well, and that's great.
That's great. There's nothing wrong with it. We do it.
And we know that it's actually working.
It's working, but it's a very crude, primitive way to deal with this. I mean, the truth is that it's not possible to have the sanitation necessary to keep you from COVID-19.
Completely.
Alternative medicine and the legal system, they don't, it's hard to, you can't get support for your personal health, especially if you have a child, with alternative medicine, because it's against the legal system, because the traditional medicine has a lock on that. And even if you're in a hospital and you're an adult and you're saying, I don't want to do it that way, I want to do it this way, it's not well received at all.
Okay. So
what's nice, the reason we're talking about self-healing here is that this is something that you can do anywhere, anytime, for you personally. Knowing your personal story and activating your essence to heal you can always help you to be in that statistical norm where people heal. And the truth is that if you're not there, it's usually because your story, it conflicts with your story.
Well, I was going to say it stands in the way of you being able to heal yourself.
Exactly.
That's the way I would say it.
Knowing your story allows you to do the clearing that's very targeted for you personally, that can help you personally heal for whatever situation you are. And right now we're talking about COVID-19 because they don't really have anything else. And if you get it and you're afraid you're going to die, if you're afraid you're going to be in a very serious situation,
or somebody that has
exactly,
the clearing works. The ecosystem approach works.
Patricia and I've already talked about this. I have asthma. I've had asthma all my life since I was 4 years old. It puts me at a higher risk. I'm not. If I need to go on a ventilator, I know. Of course, Patricia wouldn't object to that. But she would be clearing me to help so that I would get off of it. And then even after I got off of it, would clear so that those negative effects of having a machine breathe for me for whatever period of time would be overcome.
Exactly.
It's not black and white.
And nothing is black and white. So Jason, what are the key points of this segment?
Traditional medicine and our legal system gets preference. One size fits all.
Okay.
Statistics is never about you personally, but some average person who is not you.
Yeah.
All the controversy makes it easy to focus on all this controversy about alternative medicine, sham treatments, all these things. The thing to focus on is your unique ability to heal yourself and your personal story.
Mm-hmm.
And the ecosystem approach is the natural way, the easiest way to bring about your unique healing ability in the situation that's unique to you at the right time, at the right place. And by the way, you can do this in the hospital room and they won't even know it.
All right. So stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk about the simplicity and the benefits of self-healing some more. This is the Ecosystem Approach Show with Jason and Patricia. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Hi, this is Kimberly Carlson, and I would love for you to tune into All In Healing Radio, where together we will begin to experience health, happiness, and harmony in all areas and aspects of life. Join us every first Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. on transformationtalkradio.com. All In Healing will help you release layers of negative beliefs and energies for radiant health, deep joy, and greater abundance. Visit me at KimberlyCarlson.com.
Are you your story? Or can you change your story? Can you change what you believe to be true about yourself and your circumstances as part of your healing journey? What if you were to change your expectations? What if you were to invite ease and cooperation into every day and then step back and see what happens? It might just be easier. I'm Megan Edge, and I hope that you'll join me on my new radio show, Playing on the Edge, Radical Change with Ease, with my co-host Dr. Pat on Transformation Talk Radio. I look forward to seeing you there.
Want to find out more about Megan Edge? Visit her website at meganedge.ca.
Tune in to The Jen Royster Show, intuitive guidance to inspire your life, each Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This amazing show is an inspirational hour that will take you on an epic metaphysical journey to discover the spiritual approach to life's greatest challenges. Dr. Jen is an internationally known intuitive counselor, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. Call in for intuitive readings and visit JenRoyster.com for more information.
This is the Ecosystem Approach Show with Jason, and I'm Patricia. We're going to talk about the simplicity and the benefits of self-healing some more. We use an ecosystem approach to you, which is much different than what you are commonly taught. We see human beings as ecosystems that need to be uncovered instead of programmed. Human potential becomes infinite with our ecosystem approach. So, we saw a segment on CBS this weekend about the source of the coronavirus, and they talked about how these infectious diseases are transferred from animals to humans. Jason, can you explain some more of that, please?
Simply put, because I don't completely understand the science of this, but this was someone who studied it for many years, and he was saying that it's because we're destroying our natural ecosystems.
Wait. Back that doggy bus up.
We're destroying our natural ecosystems in the earth. A lot of the natural predators aren't there so that mice, rats, and other smaller animals proliferate in a way that they normally have these diseases, but because of these natural predators, they're kept in check. And when they cross the barrier from animal to humans, is because they've allowed to go unchecked. He used a really neat analogy on the show. He talked about how when we lose a species or we diminish a particular species, it's like flying a plane and the rivets start to pop off, and pretty soon, the plane is going to explode in midair because there's nothing holding it together.
Mm-hmm.
And he was using that thing, talking about our ecosystems that way.
Well, okay, so I just want to bring in this point. So we sign off from our show and say, remember, your ecosystem is the most important one in the world. And basically, he's saying that all of the ecosystems, but he's not talking about human ecosystems, but he's saying our ecosystems have been tainted, touched.
Exactly. And that's our point today.
Okay.
In self-healing. And that's our point in, the ecosystem approach. That's why we're doing this, is because we know we see so many people who are very committed to having a green earth and maintaining our natural ecosystems.
Right.
But then they treat themselves like a machine.
Right.
They don't even treat themselves like an ecosystem. And that's what we're talking about. And,
exactly.
And natural healing comes from treating yourself like a ecosystem. See, what's very clear to us, we love alternative medicine, but we use traditional medicine all the time.
Exactly.
We use them both. But the problem is alternative medicine can be expensive, difficult to access, time-consuming, and even inconvenient.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we see that people who use strictly alternative medicine can be obsessive, which is kind of toxic to your individual ecosystem.
Especially if it's delivered from that perspective.
Yes. And traditional medicine can be expensive, depending on whether you have insurance or not. Toxic, ignores a lot of issues, and treats you like a machine.
Yeah.
How do you, there's all these cures out there for COVID-19, and some of them are considered sham. You're trying to figure out what's sham, what can I use, what can I not use. Self-healing is using the ecosystem approach helps everyone and is unique to you personally.
And it also enables you to to still remain with your own ecosystem and take care of you.
You know, I was just reading that there's a mental health epidemic that's going along with the pandemic.
I have no doubt. Well, when you start trapping people in certain places, yeah.
And your mental health, see, you know, in the ecosystem approach, your ecosystem, your mental health and your physical health, there's no
dividing line.
No dividing line at all. They're all the same.
Exactly.
So when you're helping yourself so that you prevent being affected by the COVID-19, you're also helping yourself sustain the difficulties, whether it's economic, whether it's loneliness, whether it's depression,
Mhm.
you know, whether it's, you know, lack of engagement with loved ones, all those things. It's all one. It's all part of the same ecosystem.
Exactly.
And when we try and help you, say self-healing, what you're doing is you're using your own ecosystem and help put it in the proper context.
Right.
You know, and here's what we want to make clear.
Okay.
The ecosystem approach is portable. In other words, you can take it any place.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, all of a sudden, if you collapse in the middle of the street and they rush to the hospital and put a
tube down your throat,
you can still do the ecosystem approach. It doesn't require any equipment. No one can stop you from doing this.
Right.
Your doctors say, don't do that, you know, and doctors, we've seen a lot of it, you know, in terms of traditional medicine or alternative medicine, vitamins, supplements,
right.
you know, other protocol. They say, oh, don't do that. This is infinitely flexible, so it can apply to any situation, any issue, or any challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't require that you go to an expert. You know, we're teaching you how to do that, and I'm going to give you some information about our website in just a minute. But most of the teaching for us is untraining you, having you unlearn.
Right. By removing negative energies that are blocking you from the clarity you need.
And treating yourself like a machine.
Exactly.
Because we've been taught all our lives to treat ourselves like a machine. So the hard part of the ecosystem approach is unlearning that part. Because people just keep wanting to go back to that and think that's the way it should be.
Well, but when you're programmed from before birth that
exactly
that things have to be this way, and this way, not that way, man, it makes it very difficult. It really does.
So let's go to the key points, and then we'll talk about how they do self-learning, self-healing on their own.
My line, Jason, what are the key points of this segment?
The coronavirus is created by the destruction of our global ecosystems. And we say that the most important ecosystem that you can have is your own. You can make yourself crazy by trying to figure out the best way to fix yourself. Start internally. Start with your own essence. Start with your own uniqueness.
I love
and
that.
You do that with the ecosystem approach. And natural healing for yourself is standard. You were born with it. It comes with the equipment. It's not something you have to go get.
Okay.
You already have it, but it's been suppressed by training.
Okay.
And the ecosystem approach teaches you to restore your natural healing function. And this is the best thing you can do during this pandemic.
Okay.
So next week.
Excuse me, Jason. We still have a few minutes here.
We're going to talk about what we did next week.
Okay, so what are we going to talk about next week, Jason?
The ecosystem approach doesn't prevent you from being stupid when we get to have this technical difficulties and we try to figure out, we're doing this with looks, so we can't, we don't know how to, we haven't had a chance to talk about it. But so next week, we're going to do part 2 of self-healing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about removing the toxins from your ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
For most of us, we think about fixing ourselves. If we have a cold, we go to the doctor and we say to the doctor, fix us.
Or we do what we've been trained to do. If we have a cold, we drink water. We try and stay away from sugar, and which is not very easy.
In Patricia's case, she had a bad valve, so they went in and they fixed it.
Right.
But they didn't care about all the
other stuff,
pump head stuff.
Yeah.
And yes,
exactly.
So, in the ecosystem approach, it's about removing the toxins, and we're going to talk about that and what that's like and what.
And I want to make one more point, and the one more point is that I've been told by more than one cardiologist, you have one of the strongest heartbeats we have ever seen, and especially after someone has had a valve replacement.
And they don't understand.
They don't.
We could tell them, and it would go right over their head.
Yeah.
We tell them about
What deer in the
that's
headlight.
life force.
Yes.
That's their connection to her essence. They wouldn't get it. So if you want to do self-healing on your own,
okay,
the first thing to do is go to our website and sign up for our free subscription section. We have a whole bunch. We did a 4-part series on the coronavirus. We're doing at least a 3-part. I might make it 4. Don't hold me to it. 4 series on self-healing, and you can listen to it there. You can do clearings there. So if you get the virus or you want to prevent yourself from getting the virus, it's there. Patricia does a hand washing video that's really kind of fun, and she does a video with moves where you can do clearings while you're moving. And
more to come with that.
More to come with that. Yes. So go to our website.
Okay.
The Ecosystem Approach. It's all one word. .org. Not .com. It's .org. O-R-G. And where it says subscribe. It's the free section. We just ask for you a little bit of information. When you subscribe, you automatically get our newsletter that comes out weekly. And in that newsletter, we send out clearings every week. So you can do clearings on your own. People say, well, where do I start? They expect some sort of very detailed way to start. Just start clearing.
Mm-hmm.
Clear with us every week. This show we didn't do clearings because we had the technical difficulties, but every show after we always do clearings at the end, and do that with us, and then do it on your own with your smartphone in between shows, and listen to us every week.
And I want to say, anybody can, when they go to our website, they can also listen to past shows and do clearings there.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool.
It's great.
Mm-hmm.
And please go like us on Facebook. We're the ecosystemapproach.org on Facebook, and there's a big sun there on the logo. And like us. I just makes me so happy. If you do that, please, thank you.
No
It's
manipulation there.
My self-healing, and so every week you can talk to us, or you can listen to us by what time?
Connect with us every week, Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific and 4 p.m. Eastern Time. This is Transformation Talk Radio, and you're listening to the Ecosystem Approach Show with Jason and Patricia.
And if you haven't heard anything else, remember that your ecosystem is the most important one in the world.
Thank you for listening to the Ecosystem Approach Show with Jason and Patricia. I'm Patricia. Tune in every week as we discuss practical ways to apply the ecosystem approach and develop your potential to live your life on your terms. For more information, visit our website at theecosystemapproach.org.